David Brewster here with another 3 for All, and this is 3 Kee Marcello licks from 1992. Now, Kee Marcello is kind of a, relatively unknown, guitar hero from the 80s and early 90s. And he notoriously or historically replaced John Norum in the band Europe somewhere around 1986. And, obviously Europe's really well known and became very popular from the song The Final Countdown and Cherokee, and they had some other, kind of minor hits, Rock the Night. And then John Norum left the band, and the group hired, Kee Marcello, who's a very respected and famous, guitarist and musician from Sweden. So here's a quote that I found from John Norum kind of explaining why he left Europe. And so that kind of, sheds a little bit of light as far as what happened, with John Norum. And I am going to do a John Norum 3 for All. I've had a lot of requests for John Norum, and I had a few requests for Kee Marcello too. And I'm pretty random. So when I got up and I started, kind of getting ready to make a lesson today, I was just feeling the Kee Marcello lesson. I found some really great footage, and I do apologize for doing Kee Marcello before I did John Norum. No offense to any Europe fans out there, John Norum's definitely on the way. But I found this footage from Kee Marcello, and it's really cool. Great little, solo and some cool licks too. But before I jump into the licks here, I do want to talk just briefly about the time period, like when Kee, joined Europe, and he appears on the album Out of This World. And then they follow that album with an album that's almost completely forgotten, Prisoners in Paradise. And Prisoners in Paradise actually was released on September 23rd, 1991. And I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but I find it very ironic that that album came out, late September. And it didn't appear on the US charts. It just kind of disappeared. And then Europe actually went on hiatus after that. And I'm going to correlate that, or kind of combine that, with the fact that Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit, that was released on September 10th. And then it was first broadcast on MTV September 29th in 1991. So really, if you want to point a finger and blame somebody, don't blame Kurt Cobain, don't blame, Pearl Jam or whoever. Blame the record industry that was in place at that time, because basically what happened is they decided to get rid of your Bon Jovis, your Motley Crues, your White Snakes, your Def Leppards, and all these groups that they'd worked with for, about a decade. They decided, okay, let's get rid of these big giant salaries and these rock star, egomaniacs, and let's start working with these up and coming, unknown indie artists, and we're going to pay them less, and we're going to hopefully replace all these, top dollar, rock bands that we've been supporting. And it was a gamble, but it worked, and there was enough, population, or enough of a gap in society, that people just ran to groups, like Pearl Jam and Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins and some of that stuff. And, MTV was behind it, radio was behind it, magazines and print advertising was behind it, the record industry put money into it. It was a big gamble, but it worked in their favor. It didn't work, obviously, in the favor of groups like Winger, obviously Europe, and a lot of other groups that kind of disappeared right after that happened. And, it's not a very, popular area of conversation. But that is actually what happened. It was the record labels, the producers, the money makers in the record industry. They decided, hey, let's pay these new guys less, and let's get rid of all these other artists that we have to pay all these millions of dollars to. So they were basically greedy. They were trying to make more money, is really what happened. The licks from this lesson actually come from a live bootleg, from a concert that Europe gave in 1992. And it does look like a camcorder, kind of out in the crowd, because you can see all the people are kind of around the person that's filming. The quality's not that good. You can hear it, but the video quality is not the best. But, thank goodness for, late 80s, early 90s camcorders, that captured this, because I haven't really seen this performance before, or footage of this performance. But the licks actually come from a song of Kee Marcello's, and it's called Midnight Sun Mojo. And he actually, I think I've spotted like some acoustic performances of this. And he, started playing this during, his live, guitar solo in concert with Europe. And when I found the footage, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that Midnight Sun Mojo, tune. And the licks are really cool. So it revolves around kind of a D7, D Mixolydian tonality. So we're kind of playing with that dominant 7 sound, and really cool solo. So here we go. The first lick is this kind of melodic statement. This is kind of, I guess, like the melody or the main, head to Midnight Sun Mojo. And he's kind of combining a couple different positions to make the melody happen, and it looks and sounds like this. There you can see we're doing this little bending maneuver on this F sharp, and we're kind of flirting, with that G note. And then he comes down on the G string and plays, D and C right there. And then he does the bend again. And then he goes down a little bit further. And then he does the bend again. And then he basically walks up, kind of a partial, I guess, like D Mixolydian. Then he's going to change positions, and now he's up on the 13th fret. He's going to grab 12 on the B and bend that up to that same note C. And then right there, he's going to come down, and he's basically moving through sixes or sextuplets. Something like that. Really cool lick. I like that. The next lick is, kind of staying in this, D7 or, D Mixolydian tonality. And it's just this melodic phrase, and then he's kind of busily, hurriedly moving through all these little, fragments and kind of sequences. So it looks like this. And I really like how he keeps bending, that major third into the fourth. Doing that kind of thing. And after that half step bend, he does this little melodic sequence. And then he basically doubles that an octave lower, which is really cool. The next lick is this kind of higher position D minor pentatonic run, and it's kind of a speed lick, and he's adding the note D up here on the 22nd fret, like during the racy kind of shreddy part of the lick, but it looks like this. And there you can see we're basically starting it with a really common pentatonic bending lick. And then right here, he's going to grab, C, and then go back to that A. And then he's going to reach up and grab D way up there on the 22nd fret. And he's going to grab D, C, and A again. Like that. And then right here, you're going to grab G, F, and make sure it's an F there on the 18th fret on the B. And then you're going to bend, that 20th fret up again. And then the second time through it, he doesn't do the bend. He just kind of goes straight through the scale. And then you can end it with the bend. Really cool lick. All right, here's a bonus lick from this solo. And technically, you've already learned a version of this lick. And it's similar to the lick we started with, the first example, but it's an octave higher for one thing, and it ends a little bit differently. So it looks and sounds like this. I do like learning variations of licks like that, because we started with this. And then he answered that later in the solo with the same thing, an octave higher. Right? And then he kind of ends it a little different. And I love those busy, you know, kind of half and half picked and legato runs that Kee Marcello does. And he did, you know, that quite a bit. Check out, you know, Superstitious and some other, you know, songs and some of the albums he appeared on. And he's, you know, a killer player. I love those runs. Really cool. All right, that's going to wrap this look at 3 licks from Kee Marcello. And definitely, you know, he's kind of a hidden treasure, or kind of a forgotten, you know, hero from the late 80s and early 90s. And he's still active, you know, he's still, you know, performing. And he obviously is very, very, has a big fan base in Sweden. And even though his name really isn't that familiar these days in the US, he is definitely very respected, you know, in his home country and in Europe. So anyway, leave some feedback and some comments. Please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back with more material and lessons very soon. Thank you.